We all think we know the story of the Minotaur, right? Big monster, twisty maze, simple cautionary tale. But what if it's not a warning at all? What if it's actually a challenge? Today, we're going to tear this old myth apart and put it back together through the radical and honestly electrifying lens of Zarathustra.
So let's just put it right out there. Which one is it? Is the story meant to scare us into humility, to warn us against flying too close to the sun? Or is it something else entirely? A parable about the incredible potential we leave on the table, a call to embrace the very power we're told to be afraid of? Okay, to even begin to understand this new take, we have to start with Zarathustra's most foundational and, let's be real, most explosive idea. It's a concept that basically takes a sledgehammer to the very bedrock of ancient morality. And the rest of that quote is just brutal. The gods, he says, were murdered by their own weakness, by their own petty demands that chained human potential to the altar of mediocrity. So for Zarathustra, the gods weren't these loving guides. No, they were cosmic jailers, and their main job was enforcing a system that kept everyone average. And if the gods are gone, well, so are their rules. That entire moral framework built on obedience and sacrifice, it's not just outdated, it's invalid. It's like a chain that has finally been broken, and for the first time, humanity is free to figure out what greatness really means on its own terms. This is the stage for our new myth. So, this brings us to King Minos. Now, in the story you and I were told, his tale starts with an act of sinful pride. But in Zarathustra's version, it kicks off with a moment of just profound courage. The sea god Poseidon, who's described as this spirit of envy and resentment, offers Minos a spectacular bowl. But this isn't a gift, it's a test. See, the bowl represents pure, untamed, life-affirming power, and Poseidon demands it be sacrificed. In other words, he's demanding that this incredible, raw power be destroyed for the sake of order. And this is Minos's finest hour. He looks at this demand and sees it for exactly what it is, an attempt to keep him small, to keep him in his place. So he says no. He refuses. Right there, he rejects divine authority and claims his own will to power. According to Zarathustra, this is a truly noble act. But sadly, it's also his last one. Because here's the thing. While Minos had the strength to grab power, he just didn't have the stomach to handle its consequences. This is the tragic turning point, where our potential hero starts to completely crumble under the weight of his own creation. He was so close. He had the raw material to become what Zarathustra calls an overman or a superman, someone who goes beyond good and evil and creates his own values. But he couldn't do it. Instead, he just became a weak visionary. He saw the path, but he was too scared to walk it all the way to the end. The consequence of his powerful choice was the Minotaur, this magnificent abomination. But instead of looking at this creature and seeing the chaotic, powerful result of his own will, Minos just felt shame. He saw it as a dirty secret, something to be locked away. And that shame, that was his fatal flaw. Which, of course, brings us to the labyrinth. We always think of it as a physical prison built to hold a monster. But Zarathustra's take is so much darker. He says it's not a prison for a monster. It's a monument to denial. It's a psychological cage that Minos built to hide from himself. Think about it. The labyrinth is that tangled system of rules, morals, and straight-up lies that we build to hide from the powerful and, yes, sometimes terrifying consequences of our own choices. Every confusing turn is a rationalization. Every dead end is another excuse. By building it, Minos wasn't just trapping the Minotaur, he was trapping himself in a fortress of his own denial. Okay, so if the king is a failure who denies life itself, then who's the real hero of this story? Well, Zarathustra flips the whole thing on its head and asks us to look at the one who truly owns the maze. The Minotaur itself. It's not weighed down by shame or guilt or what anyone else thinks. It is, quote, blind to the petty sunlight of conventional morality. It doesn't sit around questioning its own nature. It simply is. It runs on pure instinct and a fierce, powerful will to live. And this just completely flips the script, doesn't it? The maze that Minos built to be a cage is actually the Minotaur's perfect home. The very complexity that confuses and traps weaker beings is the exact environment where the Minotaur's power flourishes. It's not trying to escape the darkness, it is the darkness.
So let's pull all these threads together. What's the final lesson from this wild retelling? Zarathustra isn't just telling a story about ancient Greece. He's throwing down a direct challenge to every single one of us.
You see, the old storytellers, they warn you, don't defy the gods, know your place. But Zarathustra says the exact opposite. He gives us a parable of potential, asking, what could you become if you had the courage not just to defy the old rules, but to own the consequences? And here it is, the gut punch. The real failure isn't creating a monster. Whether that's our ambition, our power, our chaotic potential, the real shame, Zarathustra says, is our cowardice. It's the fact that we build these labyrinths of excuses and denials to avoid owning that power. So, the path of the true hero, the overman, isn't to find a string and run away like Theseus. No, it's to walk willingly into the maze of your own making, to look that beast you've hidden right in the eye, claim it as your own, and become its master. And that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To rise above the petty judgments of any outside authority, the so-called gods, and to conquer that internal sickness of shame that brought down King Minos. It's about achieving total self-ownership, the good, the bad, and the terrifying. And so, we end right back where we started, with a question for you. What maze have you built? What are the complex systems, the moral codes, the subtle denials you've constructed in your own life? And what magnificent beast, what untapped power is waiting for you inside it? That is the real question at the heart of this parable.